Welcome to Andrew's Kitchen. Today we will be making pasta alla cecca, a light summer dish which should be used in the summer and is especially helpful now that summer is coming around. Now here are the ingredients we will be using in our dish. Fresh basil, fresh parmesan, garlic, plum tomatoes, pepper, oregano, mozzarella, olive oil, and of course the pasta to cook it in. And here are your hosts, Andrew and Dylan.
What are you doing here? What a surprise!
Well, we're making a dish, so why don't you just watch us? Perfect.
Yeah.
What Andrew's doing right now is chopping up the basil. Basil is one of the most essential parts of this dish. Right now he is chopping off the stem of the plant from the basil, and we're going to rip off the leaves and cut them up into little pieces and put them into the bowl.
This is what the basil will look like on the plate.
So see what Dylan's doing here is he's breaking down the garlic into tiny pieces so we can mix it all together to make the pasta alla cecca.
This is what the garlic will look like in the dish.
Now, Dylan is going to insert the pasta into the pot that's been boiling.
What Andrew's doing right now is cutting up the tomato, and the tomato is basically what creates the pasta alla cecca. It is a very important part of the dish. And he's cutting it up in really fine pieces, so there's not just giant chunks that it just doesn't really go well with the pasta and the basil and the garlic. So, yeah. Yeah, I'll cut up that, and then you cut into the finer pieces.
Notice how we left some extra basil and tomato. We will use these to make our side dish, bruschetta, which is bread with basil and tomato and other toppings. Now Andrew and Dylan are cutting up the fresh mozzarella. It will be used in the dish.
And we're cutting it in long, thick pieces to conserve the nutrients.
These are the 4 prepped ingredients for pasta alla cecca.
And we will also be adding the olive oil, oregano, and pepper later. Now, the pasta is done, as you can see, cooked al dente.
What Andrew is doing now is straining the pasta in the strainer in the sink. He is doing this to remove all the excess water from the pasta so that it's not all liquidy.
This is the pasta that we will use in the dish. Dylan is putting the fresh mozzarella in to give it lots of flavor, and the pasta will melt the mozzarella. Andrew now is going to put the pasta in the pot. Now Dylan is stirring the fresh mozzarella and the pasta together. Now Andrew will mix all the ingredients together to make the dish. He is now mixing all the sauce ingredients together. This is what the mixed ingredients should look like. This is what the final pasta should look like. Now Andrew will mix the 2 parts of the dish together. Now Dylan is mixing the two parts together.
What Andrew is doing right now is cutting up the oregano as one of the toppings for the dish.
Dylan is putting pepper into the pot. Andrew is pouring the olive oil into the pot. Now Dylan and Andrew will add the final toppings. Parmesan cheese and fresh oregano. This is the final product. Here's the bread we will use in our bruschetta.
Now that we have finished our pasta dish, we have these two other tomatoes. So what we will be using them as is a topping for the bread as a bruschetta.
Now Dylan is taking the bread out of the oven. Now Andrew is chopping up the basil we will use.
So Dylan is now going to apply the tomatoes onto the bread. See how he is applying just a tiny bit.
Andrew is now putting the basil on the bruschetta. Notice how he is applying just a little bit of basil, not too much, and how the basil is really, really small.
Now Dylan will apply the pepper to the finished bruschetta. Now Andrew will apply the Parmesan cheese, just a little, to the bruschetta. This is the finished bruschetta, a side dish to pasta alla chetta.
And as you can see, we have our place setting set up in the correct setting. Knife and spoon on the right, and fork on the left, perfectly aligned with the end of the table. And this is the final.
And we can't forget our ambiance. We have added candles to add elegance to this.
So, let's eat.
Dig in.
Yum!